When it comes to my young life, very few things would define it like anime and video games would. I still remember my excitement to this day as I would literally sprint home from school to watch another episode of Naruto or One Punch Man, or sometimes SAO, and pairing that incredible feeling with the monumental joy I got from experiencing the Arkham trilogy for the first time will probably never, ever be replicated. I grew up in these two mediums which, while once were separate, have now been bridged to create the absolute godsend that is anime games. With games like the Ultimate Ninja Storm franchise making me fall back in love with Naruto again, and the iconic games like Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi 3 and Dragon Ball Raging Blast redefining how I would look at fighting games for the rest of my life. However, with Bandai Namco creating games like the Storm franchise to satiate Naruto fans completely, perhaps even going a little too far, for a long time, Dragon Ball fans have had to look at Budokai Tenkaichi 3 as the pinnacle of Dragon Ball games, despite for a lot of people it not being what they would have wanted from a title like Dragon Ball. An open world Dragon Ball experience that would immerse us into the magnificently created world of the same name. So, for a lot of fans like myself, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was the answer to that problem. On announcement, the game seemed to have promised every fan an expansive open world, amazing RPG style combat that manages to stay true to the Dragon Ball style of fighting, and of course, a retelling of the iconic Dragon Ball story up into the Buu saga. Budokai and Xenoverse showed everyone that the Dragon Ball story can always be folded and twisted in interesting and fresh ways to make it entertaining, with Budokai having the largely popular what if storylines, and Xenoverse's story naturally already being kind of fucked due to time patroller shenanigans. Many people were hoping for some of the reuse of those concepts, and all of that, this game had a lot to live up to. Of course, with it also following in the footsteps of some of the greatest anime games of all time. Dragon Ball fans wanted an open world, incredible fight scenes, new generational graphics, and more than anything, they wanted to feel like they were living in the world of Dragon Ball. But unfortunately, as more information began to get revealed about the game, more and more fans of the series began to express their doubts about the success of it. It had come to be believed that the game would unfortunately not include a retelling of the original Dragon Ball story, which, to a lot of fans, including me, was upsetting. While many people came to the defense of the game, stating that the original did not need to be retold as you did not need to watch it to understand the story of Dragon Ball Z, to that claim I raise you this. You do not need to watch Naruto to understand the Boruto series. Does that mean you shouldn't watch Naruto? No, of course not. Naruto is a fantastic, monumental series that deserves more than what it was given. The original Dragon Ball story was incredible to say the least, and hopefully in the future we will get the rightful retelling it deserves. Then, the game went from having a potentially massive open world to being reduced to just 19 explorable zones, with each zone looking slightly more dull and copy and pasted than the last, with cities having no key differences and copy and pasted pedestrians everywhere, on top of the now 19 zones being riddled with annoying and unnecessary drones that will run up to you and attack you every 5 seconds. Like, I honestly have no idea who would consider this a good idea to have these Pokemon style interruptions via robots just charging at you when you so much as breathe in their general direction. Now, when the game finally did release, it was met with mixed reviews. I read some reviews that said the game was incredible, the graphics were amazing, the fight scenes were captivating, and the story was of course beautiful and brilliant. But then again, I also read other reviews saying that the graphics were okay at a push, that the fighting was just too much of the same and can get boring after a few hours of constant gameplay, and that the story was just more of the same that we'd already seen repeated 100 times before. Taking all these reviews into account, I've decided it's time I weigh in on the game and throw my opinions into the pot. So, let's do this. First of all, I gotta say, this game is stunning. With this game just sitting 4 years since release and still looking better than most AAA anime games being released, art is definitely this game's strong suit. The beautiful landscapes that feel alive because of the animals and creatures around, with the occasional dinosaur being seen, making the world feel more alive. The sounds of the rushing waves of a nearby waterfall, the gorgeous orange rays of the sun washing over the land, the ambience options such as having the music match the area, and the occasional campsite you might come across, all come together to make this game feel mystical and feel real. which is something I could not have asked for it to be done better. Sometimes I would stop on the way to a mission to just take in the landscape in all of its different forms. The fantastically large ravines that are occupied by streams of flowing water, the swamps and the rocky hillscapes which bustle together in an amazing symphony of peacefulness. This art and this incredible environment design is pushed to its limit when you enter a fight, however, which can show the landscape being bullied, battered and broken in amazing ways, with the effects of each blast, beam and transformation showing off the gorgeous colour and feel of this anime world, really selling your involvement in it. This game has some of the best still shots in the middle of cutscenes I might have ever seen, with almost all of them being screenshotted and almost wallpaper worthy. That being said, however, the fighting is difficult to say the least. In some scenarios, the fighting can be fast-paced but sometimes clunky, fluid but sometimes janky, with me sometimes having fights that look absolutely spectacular, almost like they were plucked directly out of the anime and manga shots that they were taken from, but also having some of the fights that look like I had just reinstalled Shinobi Striker. When fighting just a single person, the fights can be difficult but smooth, while when fighting multiple opponents at once, which the game will force on you many times throughout the story, the fights can be irritating but easy, with many of these fights having a clear stronger enemy, which you might want to try and fight separately, only to get interrupted in the middle of a move and be knocked back or guard broken by their weaker and lower level ally, which I hate to admit definitely got me tilted on more than just one occasion. While the combat is definitely pretty fluid, it feels like it's missing something. Yeah, you can dodge and block almost all damage, but I felt like the game was lacking some sort of counter ability. If you successfully dodge an attack, for example, give us the opportunity to press a button, similar to the follow-up feature in the game, or the stamina break feature in Duniverse, to counter with a critical attack, allowing the AI and the players to punish reckless fighting and have fights require just that little bit more strategy. Which means you have to go into each fight planning your attacks, and not just Hail Mary throwing out a Super Kamehameha in hopes that you'll deal just enough damage to beat the enemy. This can be worked in many different ways, but it would prioritize players having to learn combos, which would of course enhance their combat and enhance their synergy of the game, allowing them to feel like they've worked for the damage that they have accrued, rather than just having an arbitrary number increase to show them exactly how much damage they're doing. I will admit, if there's one thing this game seems to lack, it would be the emotion behind a lot of the story. Examples of this would be simple things like Goku going Super Saiyan, which seemed to have a lot less emotion than it did in the show or the manga, even though it's the most iconic moment in the series and arguably one of the most iconic moments in anime. The dialogue doesn't really flow as good as it should, with many long pauses being taken in between or after sentences, or words have just been said, with sometimes multiple second-long pauses only adding to the supposed jank of the dialogue. Though there are a few outliers to this. I found that with Frieza's dialogue managing to be incredible as always.
I'm not going to fall for it!
With some of the Super Saiyan Goku's dialogue also being really heartfelt.
Please, have mercy. I beg you.
How can you beg for mercy? How many people begged you for mercy before you slaughtered them? How many?
Despite his initial transformation lacking emotion. Another scene that seems to emulate this lack of emotion would be Gohan's father-son Kamehameha. Whereas in the anime, it was a powerful moment that after weeks of watching the Z Fighters fighting against Cell and slowly but surely almost coming to their demise, watching Gohan pull his hand back and fire out that one-handed Kamehameha was fucking beautiful. Then watching Vegeta throw away his pride to help Gohan in one final last-ditch effort to beat Cell, it was and always will be iconic. But I didn't get that from the game. It could have been the pacing of the Cell saga, and every saga for that matter, with there only being one perfect Cell, then a super perfect Cell boss fight, then a cool cinematic to finish off the best saga in all of Dragon Ball history. Wasn't enough. This time it just feels like you're just watching it happen with no emotion behind it, and not fully experiencing the euphoria that should be Gohan finally beating Cell. Another thing that I have to point out that irritated me would be the constant collection missions, with the game feeling like every third-ish mission was a collection mission, only for you to go out and collect these items requested, and then suddenly a pair of robots would show up out of nowhere and you'd have to fight them. Rinse and repeat, you do it again 3 missions later. It's boring. Take this instance for example. Gohan and Android 16 are in talking about nature and his love for animals in the forest when some poachers show up, with a squad of robots to fight you with, leading you into a fight scene that was completely pointless in the long run and only accomplished the task of making me feel bored with the combat. I get they can't constantly subject the player to high stakes intensity battles with canon enemies, but this isn't the next best you can do. But to be fair, that's what a lot of the game felt like to me. Pointless fluff, jank as I would call it, useless missions that meant nothing in the long run. Which, to be honest, from a game like Kakarot was disappointing, as with their incredible art, amazing soundtrack, and potential for really good fighting mechanics, having missions that I don't care about hurt the story and hurt the game for me in a lot of ways. Overall, Kakarot is fun, but flawed, with me feeling that at the time of release, this was not the game Dragon Ball fans were looking for. Does that make it a bad game, however? No. If you're looking for some pointless Dragon Ball fun in a game that'll make you feel like you're in the world of Dragon Ball, go for it. But if you want a game with heart and passion in it, with solid gameplay mechanics that to this day have stood the test of time, stick with Budokai Tenkaichi 3. And hope the Tenkaichi 4 manages to wow just as much, if not more, than its predecessors. 7.5 out of 10. This is of course the first of many game reviews I plan on doing on the channel, and I'd love to hear feedback on it if any of you have the time. If you did like it, maybe consider subscribing, and check out my other videos on Sword Art Online and the masterpiece that is Particular Spider-Man, or maybe even my Man of Steel video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.